accident that you finally could study, and by accident that she got a professor at Harvard. So it was, but probably it was not really by accident, it's her personality. And I was also extremely impressed by the way how you told us how you interact even, and I think in our times, we are dealing with so many different non-state actors that are called terrorist groups, and they are terrorist groups. But in reality, if you think about Daesh or ISIS, at the same time, these are groups that are occupying a certain territory. They are non-state actors under international law that must be taken seriously. They have obligations under international humanitarian law because they are combatants. At the same time, one of the main problems in the Syria peace talks is who should be included in the talks and who should be excluded. Now, normally, if you really want to reach a lasting, sustainable peace, you have to include everybody. But the main powers involved, whether it's the United States, or whether it's Russia, whether it's Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, you name it, all have different ideas. Who are the good people, the good rebel groups that should be invited, and who are the bad ones, the terrorists with whom you cannot sit on a table. And that's one of the main issues which is protracting the Syria peace talks. And there are many of those groups, and one of them is Boko Haram. And I was very impressed by the way how you tried to build a bridge. That doesn't mean legitimizing anything, but just to start talking with them. Without talking, you cannot achieve anything. And I will not take away what you probably will say, but I think that is what we really want from a human rights defender as you are. A person who has dedicated your life as a lawyer, as an activist, as a human rights defender, as a women's rights defender, to building bridges and to achieve more than many others have achieved. And that's also the reason why you received the Sakharov Prize of the European Parliament. You received also other prizes. But we are extremely happy to have you here today. And we will ask you first to give a speech or tell us a little bit more about you. I know that Hauwa likes to be interactive. So we will have a first hour with you and questions and answers and comments, whatever. Then we will have a break, and afterwards we have a panel together where we discuss some of the issues that you will bring up in your presentation this morning. Again, a very warm welcome, please.
Thank you so much. I pleaded that they give me a microphone that when I decide to jump up, I can jump up, and I could interact in the class and in the space we have. So forgive me if I decide to jump out of my seat and start talking, okay? I just want to say how grateful I am, deeply grateful, but also want to let you know that in this room we have about 30 countries represented. I are representing millions of people, and it's not my story, it is your story. It is how you are going to change the world that I want to focus on. I'll tell you a little bit about my work, but before I do that, let me observe protocol by thanking Mr. Alfred Nodwa. I met him 2 days ago, and yesterday actually in Vienna. And it's just amazing. When I saw him now, I was wondering, is he the same person I saw? He's totally changed. And everybody on the high table, I wanted to say, I'm delighted to be here. And for each of you and your countries that you are represented, thank you for coming. Thank you because of you. The world will not be the same place that we found it. You are going to change it for the better. Can I drop this? Okay. I wanted to also, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I wanted to also just look at my note that I don't miss anybody here. I want to thank the organizers and the staffs of the Institute of this beautiful, beautiful campus and university. I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank the European Parliament. I also want to thank each of you for the opportunity of gracing me with your presence. I'm really honored. What a city. What a good day. For those Sakharov Prize winners, I want to say congratulations. I also understand there are a big Russian delegation here. Yay! Welcome. And there is a delegation from Asia. Anybody from Asia here? Woo! Welcome. Yeah. Ukraine? Yeah. Congo?
Yeah, Congo.
Woo. Jordan? Yay! Nigeria! Woo. I missed several others, I know. I know there's a Moldova. Anybody from Moldova? Yeah, wonderful. And who again did I miss here? Latin America. Woo. And of course, our host, Europe. You guys are amazing. This is really a fantastic thing to do. And knowing very well that in the issue of our time right now is our issues of human rights and the protection and the promotion of it. And that is why I would say you are in the right place at the right time. Yesterday, I was speaking about 3 things. And I'll just mention them and I'll go into what I'm here to speak to. The first one is, how do you globalize the local? And how do you localize the global? How do you globalize the local? And how do you localize the global? I think this is a forum where this can happen without a doubt. That you can globalize the local here and you can localize the global. And the second thing I mentioned was, how do you test? Test like you test food. And how do you test? How do you test? And how do you test each given concept, each given idea, each words that have been spoken so far, and will be spoken in the days and the weeks and the months you'll be in this institution. Test it like you test food, and test it, and apply it within your context. And I want to say human rights is universal, but human rights is also contextual. But why are you here? Are you here because it's your calling? Are you here because it's a vocation? I hope in Q&A we'll try to answer why you're here and how to move from here to the next level. I will try to identify challenges of human rights. I will try to also briefly mention issues of implementation of human rights. But I will start with my story so that you know where I'm coming from and where I have gone, and hopefully I'm just beginning my journey. Professor Mowak was very generous in saying that, yes, it's true, I became educated by accident. I became a lawyer by accident. I went to teach at Harvard by accident. But beyond the accident is, how do we turn it around? And if you want to hear my accident, we'll talk about it in Q&A. But how do we turn our accident into something more substantive? I began as a prosecutor. For 8 years, I was a prosecutor in the Ministry of Justice. But before I became a prosecutor, I worked briefly with the Nigerian police in the security department. At the age of 12, before then, I was given out in marriage within the culture where I come from. So that is my life history. Each of you have a story. Don't deprive yourself from sharing your stories in this meeting. And I will share a little bit of mine, and hopefully that will take me into the next level of discussing the context of human rights that I'm going to speak to. I have been a lawyer for over 20 years and have done all sorts of rubbish things, and we'll talk about it if you want to hear. But I want to emphasize that law is only an instrument that will take us somewhere. And I know there are different professions here. Do not underestimate the power in you. Do not underestimate the power of one. But above all, there is a greater power in unity. So also remember that in as much as you have a power of one, you have a power collectively. I'm currently engaged in issues of how women and mothers can steer away youth from violent extremism. And this is because the president of Nigeria, the former president, invited me to work on the kidnap of the schoolgirls in Chibok by Boko Haram in 2014. So if you want me to talk about that, you can take note, and I would talk about it. So in 2014, I worked on the issues of girls that were kidnapped by Boko Haram. Most of them are still not found. And then last year, I spent the year in Jordan. I was invited by His Royal Highness, Prince Hassan bin Talal, an amazing person, and it gave me an insider bit into ISIS and what they call in the region Daesh. So I'm sure we are going to talk a little bit, if you want to see where I'm coming from where mothers become solutions, become the soft power, become tomorrow's change agents. Not only the Apache helicopters and the AK-47, but beyond that, I think there is a soft power, which are the women. And I could talk about it in Q&A. Now, let me mention briefly that I have also published. So I'm a practitioner on the field, hands-on, but I've also published. So if you want to find some books that I've written, one of them became a bestseller on Amazon. Just put my name on Amazon, and you find some of my publications. What I'm going to be speaking to today, I have also written about them. But let me mention briefly the challenges which you have had. I just want to underscore them today. The challenges of human rights include challenges of poverty, inequalities, discrimination, and specifically here I wanted to mention refugee. And some of them call them migration or refugee, whatever status they are. Those are challenges of our time. The other challenges is armed conflict, democracy, and weak institutions. That is on one side of the aisle. On the other hand, on the other side of the aisle is the knowledge deficit we have in some of these areas, and the capacity gap we have, the commitment to implement, and issues of security. In this milieu of challenges, where do you fit in? Where do I fit in? And where together can we work? I ask that I speak for about 20 minutes and 30 minutes, and I want you to prepare your questions. Some of the issues we are dealing with are contextual. Some may not really necessarily be contextual. We all are doing good in different capacities. So we are here to share, and we are here to learn. Now, I'm going to share two stories, and I'll speak a little bit about you, and I will stop so that we can interact, we can have interaction. Because the questions help me to think broadly to what you want to know. In 1999, in my country, Nigeria, the northern part, we introduced Sharia, which is the Islamic law. And by accident, I became a lawyer, a defendant of some of these ladies that were sentenced to die by stoning. And children sentenced to be amputated because they have stolen. And I was asked one question by a BBC reporter. And the question was, is stoning to death in the Quran, which is Islamic by the Quran? Is stoning to death in the Quran? And my answer was simple, I don't think so. But my answer was played and played. Now, Hausa is one of the largest language spoken in West Africa, not only Nigeria. So it was a BBC Hausa program, and it was played and played and played. And the mullahs, the Islamic fundamentalists, decided to answer me. And this is what they say. They say, I am anti-Islam, I'm anti-Sharia, and I was paid by the West to destroy Sharia. What that means is that I'm an apostate, and that also means that I should be stoned to death. So having understood the dynamic in my country, in the situation that I was handling the cases of the women sentenced to death by stoning, I decided to approach the reporter that spoke to me. And I said to him, that I want to speak to these mullahs that were calling for my death sentence. And he says, it's so dangerous for you to do that. You heard what they say, and you don't want to try that. And I insisted that I want to speak with them. That is my story. After I insisted, he said to me, I will introduce you to the mullahs, but I will not be responsible for you. And I accepted. The mullahs were so generous, and they wanted to see me in a mosque. For those of you that can see me, I think I am properly dressed. Do you think so? But when you enter the mosque, and I'm trying to emphasize sensitivity, maybe Aisha is more properly dressed than myself. You have to be covered. So when you deal, I don't know the situation or dynamic. In my situation, I have to be sensitive that I have to dress properly to enter the mosque. They wanted to see me in the mosque. So I was totally covered from my fingers to my toes. I was handling 47 cases then. And I walked in, and at the end of the mosque, there were 7 of them sitting. And when I walked in, I was approaching them. I saw a chair halfway in the mosque. I didn't go to the chair, I went toward them. And while walking toward them, I decided close to them to kneel down and to sit down on the floor. And they chorused at the same time. Stand up and go and sit on that chair, they said to me. Now, this is my dynamic. And I said to them, and I cannot look at the men on their faces where I come from, some of our cultures. So I was looking on the floor, and I said to them, how can I, Hauwa, your daughter, sit on a chair when you, my fathers, are sitting on a chair? They were quiet for some time, and they asked me, are you the lawyer? And I said, as you please, yes, I am. Are you Hauwa Ibrahim? As you please, yes, I am, I said to them. But I told them more. I didn't speak a word about what brought me before them about the radio interview that they condemned me for. I told them I'm a foolish lawyer. I told them I'm a silly lawyer. I told them I'm out there doing some good, I hope, but I'm not getting it right. And I came before them for wisdom. I came before them for knowledge. Now, the conversation went a long way. But for the first time, about 1 year then, we were trying to get this man, they couldn't listen to us, drop their guard. A simple act of intuition. It wasn't state managed, it was just intuition. And because I came in from that culture, when the men sit on the chair, we the women do not sit on the chair. The men are our demigods. You want to penetrate the heart of situation of challenges? Know your dynamics. Know how to work within your dynamics. Now they listened to me, This Amanda never wanted to see me because I was anti-Islam, but by my mere act of submission. I'm not a lawyer before them. No, I have no air of any cloud of importance before them. No, I was their daughter. Intellectually, we cannot match, but I am their daughter. That is my dynamics. I decided to work within my dynamics. I don't know what is yours. So we had an engagement. We discussed for some time. And they told me two things before I left. They said, we will not publicly support you, but we will also not publicly attack you. That was all I needed as a lawyer at that moment. The more the messages in the mosques after the Friday prayers is that I'm anti-Islam, I lose my legitimacy as a lawyer in the Sharia courts. That is my dynamic. I don't know what is yours. So when I say human rights is contextual, it is your context. Before I left the mosque, they said to me, even though we will not attack you and defend you, we want you to slow down. In their generosity, they gave me a Quran, a bigger Quran than I had. And most of them couldn't read or write. So they used they thumped it for me, and this is one of my precious possessions. But because they were not attacking me publicly, I was able to continue doing the cases. And from 47, I went to over 157 cases. Of course, in 2008, I was invited to Harvard. And ever since then, I have hung around Harvard since 2008. But my basic work, my basic assignment is where I come from. For Aisha and for some of you that comes from Africa, you know people that sell things on their head? We carry things on our head. We call them talla in Hausa. You carry things on your head and you go from house to house to sell. That was me. That was me. I was a hawker. I was hawking in the village from one small house to one small hut. That was what I was doing. So my calling is, when I say, is it your vocation, is your calling? For me, human rights work comes from inside out. I didn't imbibe it. I didn't take it from elsewhere. I didn't study it. It comes from inside out. Because I could have been those girls sentenced to die by stoning. I could have been those children sentenced to have their limbs amputated. I was one of them. So even though I am at Harvard, I felt I can use the Harvard brand to create some change. So in 2011, I brought one of the most important personalities we have in my country. That is my second story. Who is the Sultan of Sokoto to Harvard. But before we brought him, so this is a different level of human rights work. And for some of you that are Europeans that don't have the same situation that we have, maybe this could give you some thoughts. So we invited the Sultan of Sokoto to come to Harvard because he speaks to over 100 million Muslims in West Africa. They listen to him when it is time for, now we are fasting. And when the moon is sown, they see the moon, it is him that announces the moon. And Burkina Faso will say the Sultan of Sokoto has announced, or Niger will say, so it's beyond Nigeria. And one of our difficulties is what I told you earlier, I was given out in marriage at the age of 12. And today in the villages, there are girls that are given out in marriage much earlier, even 12. But we cannot have sustainable development in our situations. And that brings me back to the mothers, as the custodian of our cultures, of our tradition. We cannot continue to have Boko Haram or ISIS if we relegate our positions as mothers, our womb, the children of our womb. And so we have a role to play as mothers. So those girls have a role to play, and they cannot play the role if they don't know a little bit more. So we thought the Sultan coming to Harvard will give us a stage where we can use his voice to propagate issues we care about. Remember, one person can do a lot, a power of one. I started by saying that. but there is a power of innovative and creative thinking. There is also a power of many. But when this man speaks to 100 million, you know, we have better microphone than me that is irrelevant in the situation. So the Sultan came, but before he came, we decided to discuss with his speechwriter what we thought he should mention. And they have to cross-check it in the caliphate. But one thing we wanted was that the girl should not be taken out of school and getting married. We want that in his speech. We got it in the speech. I don't know what are your strategies, what are your tactics as human rights defenders or people that are into human rights administration. There are stages. You have a strategy, you have a tactics. There are times that you feel, some of us feel, khalas, finish, basta. We as ourselves, we become the problem. So we step back and we get some people to step in and be the voice. So the Sultan came, His Eminence came. He mentioned that issue of girls not removing them from, especially in the north, to send them to school and to get them married, remove them from school to get them married. And the next step was that after he finished, we took the message of the Sultan, which was delivered in the stage of Harvard, the international stage. We took it back to the Caliphate. We asked them, is it possible for us to translate this speech in Hausa, which is the local language of the northern people? Huh? Can we translate this in Hausa? And they said, of course, yes, this is a speech translated. The next step, we wanted to remove that sentence, that girls should not be removed from school to get married early. And they said, yes, we can do that. Can we turn it into a jingle? Of course, yes. Now remember, the medium of hearing, people listen more to radio where we come from, especially in the villages. When you see we call them the cow herders, like the gypsies, they go into the bush, they will always have their radio. So this is what they listen to. So we identify the means of communication to these people, and that was radio. And so we thought we should use this means of communication, so we turned it into jingles. And then we went, because we don't have money. Most human rights defenders don't have money. So we went to the radio station and asked the director if it is possible for him to play those jingles free at prime time. It may only affect one woman. We have over 200 million people in my country. Maybe one girl. I don't know what you are doing. I don't know how you are doing it. Feel free to share some of these experiences as you go along. But let me conclude. I have many, many more stories to tell you. I guess by the time we keep on the Q&A, we'll have more stories to tell. One of the things I'm sure you've identified here and the school have identified, is to increase your capacity and to share best practices. Remember Andrew Sakharov, for those fellows and our Sakharov fellows. The prize after him is for the freedom of thinking. So we can sit here and talk about hermeneutics. We can talk about fig. We can talk about relativism, whether cultural or otherwise. We can talk about theories and theologies. But I challenge you, how does it affect humans? How does it affect the people you are working for and with? So if there's anything you would take out of this meeting today and beyond, how does it affect the people you are dealing with? Part of what we discussed in Vienna is what we call the moral economy. How in our work do we encourage people that have control of media, entertainment, advertisement? They have sweet lips and sweet tongues. How do we in our work directly interact with them and change the narrative? Europe has a bigger microphone. Yesterday I said to them, this is like a veil, Okay? This is a veil. I said, lift the veil. Lift it up. Lift the veil out of people that want to use us as pawn in a chess board. Lift the veil. In the circumstances of which you walk, lift the veil. Don't be consumers. Juxtapose what you hear. The social media is so powerful. They send so many messages. I was talking about, I have 2 young boys. And one of them is addicted to video games, violent video games. Is that the future? Is that a bigger agenda? How do you come in? How do you juxtapose what you hear? How do you diversify your information network? Now you don't take one information and make it, that is it. You are bigger than that. You are bigger than one information. So the media, the social media, the mainstream media, the arms industry, we plead, as you go along your walk, unless we reduce the amount of arms that goes into our budgets, you see budget of countries, the arms industry, the arm carry the chunk of the budget, and education is somewhere in between, puny. What message do we send? Message of fear? Oh, you know, we can make AK-47 free on the road, on everywhere, and people can use it to kill without a license. So in your work, I plead, you stay focused, but yet do not be consumers. Check your theories, test it, and taste it before you apply it. And finally, the world needs you. You there, the world needs you. Each of you, the world needs you. Irrespective of the color of our skin, irrespective of your creed or religion, irrespective of your privileges of disabilities, irrespective of your religion or creed, the Human Rights School in Venice, the European Parliament that have brought us together, there is a powerful force in this room that unites us. And that is our human dignity. That is the worth of our human person. And I ask you to go out, to do good, and remember that the world needs you. Thank you so much.
You see, I didn't promise too much. The floor is open. Can you also do it without a micro? Please.
Mrs. Ibrahim, thank you very much. And thank you for your message. Well, needs you. I'm from Ukraine. And
Can you give me a hug?
during your Ramadan, we have the same, I'm a drop in the
Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. It was very inspiring to listen to you. We went through the same things. I'm a lawyer from Iran. I also defended many women in the same way as you defended. And I had also the case of Estonia. And when we went to Sharia, scholars and religious men to ask for support because we didn't also want to be apostate. And so to change discriminatory laws, we gave to them to ask for their support. But those who has no power in the government, they supported us. But it was helpful because we had a campaign to change discriminatory laws against women, and we were successful in a way to change some of those laws. But my question is, how was your strategy to change?
Because the people in the back don't hear. Yeah. Please. Yeah, start again.
Okay. We went to many religious scholars and religious figures to ask for their support to change, for instance, custody, the rights of divorce, or even death penalty for stoning to death for adultery or for other crimes. But some of these religious guys, which has no power in government establishment, they said, okay, we're supporting you, and was helpful. But the problem is that most of the religious guys who has power to speak out and who can do something, they are themselves within the establishment. So you're always going to talk with them, but because they want to stay in power, they're not supporting you. And maybe they're not speaking out publicly, but they always put obstacles. You cannot go beyond that obstacle, whatever strategy you are taking to apply. And my question is particularly about not this religious establishment or men in power. I want to ask you about ordinary men. How did you get the support for ordinary men? Because sometimes it's difficult to involve them to support women's rights, to fight for gender equality. We tried several ways in Iran to gain the support of these ordinary men, but I just want to learn from your experience from Nigeria. Thank you.
I will take one question so that I make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. One more, then answer together.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Michael. I work as a gender focal point and human rights focal point in the EU delegation in Kabul. So my question would be, do you have an idea of what drives the other side? So working in that context, it's sometimes difficult to understand, particularly if you look at civilian casualties, which have been going up steadily in Afghanistan. To understand what drives the other side, why are they not taking care of civilians, why are they not targeting really their enemy, but they really just rip through anybody. And they seem to be completely disconcerted about the backlash that has in the population. So this I really don't understand at all. What is actually their motivation to do these things?
When you mean the other side, you mean ISIS, Boko Haram, those difficult ones in the Taliban's? Both are very excellent questions. And I can only try to explain to you, I have been to Iran, I have been to Kabul. And so I understand a drop of what I'm saying. So I cannot answer your question. I would say it's contextual, but I'll attempt to answer. To your question as power and the support of ordinary men, I'll give you sort of two examples how I did work with them. And maybe it could be helpful. So when I started going to court, the Sharia court, we always had Sharia. So Nigeria became independent from Britain in 1960. And then before independence in 1960, we already had Sharia in the northern Nigeria. So when the common law came, they introduced a different concept of Sharia, and so they only make it in the constitution as civil matters. So Sharia under the Nigerian constitution today covers only civil matters. So in 1999, the criminal aspect of Sharia was introduced, and that is where I became active in the defense of this woman. And there are 5 major offenses that were introduced in 1999. If you drink alcohol, you'll be flogged 100 publicly. If you steal, you have your limbs amputated. If you commit zina, zina is adultery and fornication lumped together. You will be stoned to death if you are married or have any semblance of marriage. And if you have no marriage at all, you'll be flogged 100 lashes publicly. If you commit hiraba, hiraba in the context of our laws is that you steal and you kill, you'll be crucified. So they introduced the concept also of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, okay? So that was partly what was introduced in 1999. And that is where I began the issue of Sharia. Now, when they introduced, we had the area court would administer Sharia. And now the Sharia court overnight became Sharia courts. And I went there with a team of lawyers, and I appeared, my name is Hauwa Ibrahim, may it please my Lord, my name is Hauwa Ibrahim, with me this and this and this. And they were like, what? How would there are men in the court? So technically, shut up and sit down. And I want to challenge you here. It wasn't about me. It was about the case I was handling. Even though I'm the most senior lawyer, it wasn't me. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about that I have to impose. I have to take the authority. I'm the most senior lawyer in our legislation. I'm supposed to speak, and the men will have to sit down. I realized very soon that it's not me. So if you watch, there are documentaries, 1 hour in BBC and 1 hour in CNN, you can Google it. You will see me in the courtroom. I'll be writing the notes, and I'll hand over to him to read. He is the man. He is the lawyer man. But they don't research. They don't know what they are doing in court, in a way. And he'll be reading my notes. So I think the cameraman noticed it, and he captured it in this documentary. So we have to realize, and I said it earlier, that human rights work is bigger than us. Whatever we do is bigger than, that's for me very important, I emphasize, is bigger than us, okay? So I came out of the court one of these days. In 2001, in Amina Lawal case, she was sentenced to die by stoning because she had a child out of wedlock, and she was pregnant without a husband, and she confesses. So that is the 2 accounts that she was charged and sentenced to die by stoning. So I came out of the courtroom, and it's a village. Most of the villages don't have any means of civilization. There's no road, no potable drinking water, no electricity. It's the village like I grew up, nothing. So I came out, and the men will come because they have nothing to do. We have a lot of men in the villages. They will come. These are beggars, these are blind people, these are people with leprosy, these are people with one leg. They have nothing to do, so they will jump, they will trip into the court, they fill the court. Even we as lawyers will have to manage to get a space to sit. And everything the judge said, they will say, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. So you yourself as a lawyer, you are intimidated. But it's the ability for you and for me not to be intimidated. And in my strategy, in my book, I wrote 7 strategies of practicing in Sharia court. And if you give me a contact, I'll send you a copy. It's on Amazon, but I'm happy to send you a copy. And one of the strategies was for me never to be intimidated. But how do I do that? I read the law. I eat the law. I digest the law. And I breathe the law. And I speak it. So I am one stage ahead of all the men. I never go to court feeling unable in anything. I speak from the knowledge that I have read of the Quran or the Hadith. When you do your work, wherever you are in this room, learn to eat it. Learn to possess it. Nobody takes it away from you. You have become an authority. So it's very important. Whatever you do, be an authority. So I came out of the courtroom, And there is this beggars that just pump on one side under the tree, waiting for us to pass and curse us. You know, they say, Ya Bil Adama, Ya Hudawa, the Jews of Islam. Never join issue. Never join issue. That's my strategy. Never join issue. I'm as silly, as stupid as they want me to look like. Okay? So then I went into my car and I noticed there were really many of them under the tree. So I removed my gown. I don't wear a wig in the Sharia code. I wear the scarf like she's wearing. I went near the same beggars and blind people, and lepers, and I knelt down and I greeted them in a respectful way. They are all sitting. And they were like looking at me very strange. See, the lawyer is greeting us. And she even kneeled down to greet us. That was the impression I got. I am the important person that is the anti-Islam, but see, I'm here before them, giving up all, without even a gun, without air of anything, and greeting them. So they listened to me, they greeted back, and I said to them, can you pray for me? Pray for me because I want to do what is right. Just pray for me. And in our culture, they eat kola nut. I don't know who among you know what is a kola nut. So their mouth was full with kola nut. So they pray, and when they do the prayers, they spit the prayer on you. So they were spitting the prayer, and everybody was spitting all their mouth. They didn't wash for 10 years or 20 years. Everybody was spitting it on me, and I take it with good grace. And I went into the car and I drove away. And our strategies, of course, I'll tell you if you want to know about how, if you are in a difficult situation, an exit strategy, you cannot come to the court the same way 2 times. Otherwise, you are already, I have fatwas. I have 6 fatwas to be killed. So I know how to escape at times. God help us, Allah help us, but we also have to be strategic. But we can talk about that in different sessions. Anyway, so I left back to where I come from. And then one of the mullahs that we've been trying to see in that specific village of Kurami, she may know she's come from Katsina State. Kurami is the name of the village. No, they didn't want to see us. The chief, the small Hizbah man. His wife gave birth. And in our culture, the 8th day is when you name the child. One of these beggars, you remember? They are nobody. They could be the most important person that could ever make a game changer. And I spoke in my book about how do you make allies. The allies that disagree with you and those that agree with you. And I have no enemy. They are not worth my big enemy. Nobody is worth being my enemy. So they are I take everybody as an ally. So this beggar, you know what they do every day in the morning? They go from house to beg for food to eat. We don't have electricity, so they don't have TV. The most they hear is from the radio. But they are the biggest informant in the village. There is no biggest informant like those beggars. They are powerful than the social media, than the tweet. So, one of them knew that the chief of the Hizbah in that village was against me, and his wife had put to bed. And they cannot read or write. But remember, after I greeted them, I left. One of them followed me. And who am I? I gave them my card, my business card. They cannot read. So they took my business card. They went to the motor park, which is our means of communication. They wrote behind, I should come to Kurami on Thursday. That was the day of the wedding. I mean, the day of the naming ceremony. So whatever I was doing, I should come to the village. They gave it to the driver of the taxi. If you get to Abuja, behind this, there is a name and the address of this lady. Give it to her in Hausa. I got the message. They said it's from Kurami. It didn't make any sense. Anyway, I risked it. Now, I arrived at the village much earlier. I slept in Kaduna. I arrived much earlier. I slept in a smaller town before the ceremony. So I arrived. So in my place, they make fire with wood. They make wood. They use wood to fire the pots to cook. So at times the wood is so wet and so, it cannot catch fire. So you have to use your mouth to blow so that the fire will catch. At times you use the small fan to fan. When I arrived, everybody is welcome. I removed my nice clothes, went in, usually the woman will put clothes on the bed, took her wrapper, tie on me, went under the wood stove, used my mouth to be blowing. Everybody was looking at this strange woman. Where is she coming? Nobody realized who I was, because everybody in the village is like, welcome, okay? So after I was washing the plate, I was sweeping the place. I don't know them from heaven, but this is my culture. You can come and help. So I was doing what I was needed to do. And one of them noticed, as if this woman, ask her. So I said, no, I'm the lawyer of Amina. So I said, we hear you on the radio, we hear you on the radio. So they called the wife, the one that gave birth. And so she said, okay. And she was like, I will tell my husband you are here. Remember, this is a man that had refused to see us for months on end. She will tell him, I'm here. So he invited me to come into his, what they call the turaka, like his bedroom with the wife. And that was a massive game changer. Now, what I did was all intuition. And I want to use that to underscore the point I'm making today. Do not underestimate the intuition you have. Use it. Now, this man greeted us casually and left. I said, oh, you are the lawyer. I said, yes, we've been trying to see you, but we have a long conversation. He left. But now he became the biggest ally we have in the village. He said, we are not enemies. We are not enemies. We are only trying to do our jobs. We are not fighting Islam. We made it very clear, we are not anti-Islam. I'm not anti-Sharia. There are several good things. You need to know Sharia. Islam itself is peace. There are very fraction, puny, tiny minority that are trying to redefine the religion. They are irrelevant. And for me, the message of peace resonates with me globally. And for the men that are against us, I believe that they are all uninformed or ill-informed or not informed as much. And if I have opportunity to let them know what I'm doing, I try. I do know that situation in Iran. At times I feel powerless. I can't do anything because they don't even want to see me. They don't want to listen to me. Who do I know that knows who knows him? I remember in one judge, we knew that he had a mistress. So we ends justify the means. So we decided to look for the mistress. Okay, that's the end of that story. I don't want to capture it on TV. So anyway, so it depends on where you want to get your message across and how you want to get it. And it's going to be contextual. So I beg you to explore possibilities within law, within morality, and as much as possible within human rights perspective. And now, but the second question I have to shut up because I think my 1 hour is gone. The second question has to do with, can you remind me, I think I put it down.
What is the motivation of the Taliban Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan? The question was more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know Afghanistan, so I'm unable to answer what is their motivation. I will suggest some few motivations. And these are just few motivations that I throw around because of the little work I work with Boko Haram. And I sent a bit of ISIS. Maybe he will say a little bit about that. These people are looking for relevance. And I say, sometimes the media is the oxygen of the terrorist. I repeat, sometimes the media is the oxygen of the terrorist. So they are looking for relevance and they're trying to find it anywhere they can find. And some of them are doing it with good intention. I remember meeting some Boko Haram in the prisons in Maiduguri. They were captured and they were put in prison, and we used the mothers to be able to persuade them a little bit. I can tell you about these strategies in another time because my time is getting up. We asked them, what do you want? They said, we are doing the work of Allah. Genuinely, they are doing the work of Allah. Really, seriously. But what is the work of Allah? Is the work of Allah to kill, to maim, to destroy? So we say, have you read in the Quran what is the work of Allah? We have been taught. And some of them, when they start reading the Quran, they can read from the first to the last verse of the chapter. They know it off head. But only selections of the Quran. And in any given books that you know of the major Abrahamic religion, there is deep violence. Actually, I was researching stoning to death, and I found 39 citations of stoning to death in the New Testament and the Old Testament in the Bible. I don't know how many of you have seen that. 39. I didn't see one in the Quran. But the point I'm making right here is that they are half-baked or no baked at all. So when we brought the Quran and you say, this is the Quran, which language can you read? In Arabic? They all recite it, but they cannot read. Some of them can read Hausa. Those that can read Hausa, we give them the Hausa Quran. Can you read it? And they were all tears. And to some extent, I understood that they only know as much. So their motivation could be total lack of knowledge. They don't know. And because they don't know, they say, the good book says, without knowledge, the people perishes. So we perish because of lack of knowledge. But on the other hand of the aisle, these people have been deprived. Some of them in Europe, for example, that I have been able to interact with them, they were born, they don't know anything. They were brought from North Africa or other part of, they were born, all they know is the country they are. They know the language, the culture, and they apply for a job. And because his name is Ibrahim, or Abdul Karim, or Bashir, nobody look at their application. So it's the others, us versus them. And that philosophy, maybe within some context of Europe, they have to be looked into. There is no powerful word in life than love. And love is not spoken, it's shown. If you are accepted and embraced, at times you don't go to the extreme. So I think we must open opportunities where we can be inclusive in our thought process, inclusive in, giving opportunities, especially people that need that aspect of us. And I say, I wake up every morning. I want to change the world. My mother would say, you cannot. But I say, if I can play my part, I'm good to go. And our part could just be a smile to somebody that looks so gloomy. But finally, part of the motivation could be the fact that unemployment and the economy that we run today is controlled by powerful interests. 1/10 of 1% in the United States control 90% of the economy. It's immoral. We have to create opportunities where youth like you and all people will have a sense of belonging. People that are coming as immigrant or refugee, they are not coming to Europe to take your job. Maybe they have situations. Some of them I spoke to in Irbit and in Zatari. They desperately wanted to go back. They are lawyers, they are professionals. They want to go back home. So let's provide an opportunity where they will stay back home. And part of it is to reduce the amount of arms that we produce globally so that we can have a bit of peace. Invest in freedom and peace, not in arms and Apache helicopters and AK-47 and APCs. But beyond all that, remember that it is one day, one person, one issue, one time. And it is your time to make the change happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We now have a break. Outside should be some coffee. We could also interact. I hope you're